Captain Thomas Reed stood at the viewport of the ECS Tenacity, watching the glittering ships of the Galactic Council circle the massive space station. Compared to Earth's vessels, they looked like art pieces, sleek crystalline structures that seemed to flow through space rather than push against it. "Captain, the Council representatives request your presence at Docking Bay 12, said Lieutenant Parker from his communication station. "They've added that we should, try not to damage anything with our primitive docking procedures." Reed sighed. It was the third such comment since they'd entered Council space. "Acknowledged. Tell them we'll do our best not to break their pretty toys." The ECS Tenacity was humanity's newest deep space vessel, built with thick armored plating, redundant systems, and practical efficiency in mind. It resembled a floating fortress more than the elegant alien ships. To human eyes, it represented safety, reliability, and the culmination of centuries of engineering. To the rest of the galaxy, it was an eyesore. As Reed made his way to the shuttle bay, crew members nodded respectfully. They all knew what awaited them on the station. More mockery, more condescension, more of the treatment Earth had received since joining the Galactic Council 3 years ago. The shuttle ride was brief, and despite the aliens' concerns, completely smooth. When Reed stepped onto the polished floor of the station, a tall, blue-skinned Australis was waiting. Ambassador Lur didn't bother hiding his disdain. "Captain Reed, your vessel continues to astound me. How it manages interstellar travel without collapsing in on itself remains a mystery. Basic engineering, Ambassador. Sometimes simple solutions work best." Lur's mouth formed what passed for a smile among his kind. "Simple indeed. Come, the Council is waiting. Try not to touch anything sensitive with those heavy boots of yours." Reed followed the ambassador through sweeping corridors filled with representatives from 24 spacefaring species. Many stopped to stare at the human, some whispering behind elegant hands or tentacles. "Look at their uniforms, so rigid and formal. I heard their ships still use combustible fuel as backup systems. My analysis shows their computer systems are at least 30 cycles behind current standards." Reed kept his face neutral. Let them talk. The laughter stung, but it didn't change the facts. While alien shipwrights focused on beauty and theoretical perfection, Earth's engineers had emphasized survivability, redundancy, and practical solutions to real problems. The council chamber was a massive dome with seats arranged in rising tiers. At the center stood Earth's diplomatic team, looking uncomfortable as technical advisors from the advanced Meridian species displayed holographic models of human ships, pointing out what they considered design flaws. "These reinforced bulkheads waste precious space," said the Meridian engineer, her 6 fingers manipulating the hologram. "And these manual override systems are completely unnecessary with proper automation." Reed took his place beside Earth's lead diplomat, Ambassador Wilson. "They've been at this for 20 minutes, Wilson whispered. "I think they scheduled this technical review just to embarrass us." "Let them have their fun," Reed replied quietly. "They don't understand our design philosophy because they've never needed it." Back on Earth, a very different meeting was taking place. In a secured facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, engineer Maya Williams presented her findings to military leadership. "The adaptive hull system tests are complete," she reported, showing footage of a metal panel absorbing and redistributing energy. "The aliens think we're behind because we use traditional materials. They've never considered using ordinary metals the way we are." General Adams nodded. "And they're still underestimating us." Maya smiled. "Completely. According to our intelligence, they think our ships are barely holding together. They have no idea what we've actually built." "Good," said the general. "Let's keep it that way." For now, the Galactic Council meeting dragged on for hours. Captain Reed found himself struggling to maintain his composure as representative after representative rose to offer helpful suggestions about Earth's ship designs. "The rectangular structure is simply inefficient," declared a glowing Luminar delegate, his body pulsing with blue light as he spoke. Our quantum simulations prove that curved surfaces distribute energy much more effectively. And those enormous engines, added a reptilian Draxis official. So much wasted space and materials. Our drive systems are 1/10 the size and generate twice the power. Reed glanced at engineer Dan Foster, who sat beside him taking careful notes. Foster caught his eye and gave a slight shake of his head. The private signal they had developed for, they're missing the point entirely. When the meeting finally ended, Reed and Foster escaped to a viewing deck that overlooked the massive docking bay. The ECS Tenacity sat among the alien vessels like a brick among diamonds. They still don't get it, do they? Foster said, watching maintenance crews work on a damaged Astralis cruiser. The beautiful ship had limped into port after a minor asteroid collision had somehow compromised 3 of its primary systems. No, Reed replied. And that's our advantage. They build their ships to win beauty contests. We build ours to survive wars. Back on Earth, engineer Maya Williams was demonstrating the adaptive hull technology to a select group of military observers. In a massive testing chamber, she fired a high-energy beam at a sample of the new hull material. Instead of melting or breaking, the metal seemed to absorb the energy, its surface rippling slightly before stabilizing. The nanoscale structures reorganize under attack, she explained. The more energy directed at them, the stronger they become. It's like teaching metal to learn from experience. Admiral Jackson, watching from behind protective glass, nodded appreciatively. And the aliens have nothing like this. No, sir. They focused on energy shields and deflection systems. The idea of armor that adapts and gets stronger is completely foreign to their design philosophy. They consider physical armor primitive. How long until we can outfit the entire fleet? Maya smiled. The Tenacity already has it. Captain Reed is flying our prototype right now. The Council thinks it's just ordinary metal plating. Meanwhile, aboard the space station, Ambassador Lure cornered Reed and Foster in a dining area. The Astralis couldn't resist another opportunity to belittle human engineering. I've been reviewing your ship specifications, Lure said, his voice carrying deliberately so nearby aliens could hear. Did you know that your life support redundancies take up nearly 15% of your internal volume? Such waste. Our systems require only 3%. Redundancy isn't waste, Ambassador, Reed replied calmly. It's insurance. Insurance against what? Poor design. Lure laughed, joined by several nearby delegates. Foster spoke up. Ambassador, how many Astralis ships have been lost to system failures in the past decade? Lure's blue skin darkened slightly. 23. But those were exceptional circumstances. Earth has lost 0. Foster interrupted. 0 ships lost to system failures in the same period. The dining area grew quieter. Different design philosophies, Reed added. You optimize for elegance. We optimize for survival. Lure's expression hardened. And that, Captain, is why you humans will always remain behind. You cling to outdated principles of over-engineering rather than embracing advanced concepts. Your ships are dinosaurs, powerful perhaps, but doomed to extinction in our evolved galaxy. As the ambassador walked away, Foster whispered, should we tell him that dinosaurs ruled Earth for 165 million years? Reed smiled. Let's keep that to ourselves for now, along with everything else they don't understand about us. Across the station, a communications officer received a troubling message from the outer systems. Something was moving through Council space, destroying everything in its path. Something that the elegant ships of the advanced races couldn't seem to stop. Alarms blared throughout the Galactic Council station. Emergency lights pulsed along corridors as beings from dozens of worlds rushed to briefing areas. Captain Reed and Engineer Foster sprinted toward the Central Command Center, dodging panicked delegates. What's happening? Reed asked a passing Meridian officer. Attack. Outer colonies. Nothing like we've seen before, the officer replied, her words clipped with fear. The command center was in chaos. A massive display showed real-time footage from the Draxis colony world of Nexus Prime. Strange black ships, shaped like jagged spears, cut through the orbital defenses with terrifying ease. The elegant Draxis vessels, pride of their fleet, were being sliced apart like paper. Council Supreme Commander Thelos, a towering four-armed being, was shouting orders when Reed and Foster entered. "Dispatch the Astralis defense fleet. Get me the Luminar High Command. Where are the Meridian battlecruisers?" Ambassador Lur stood nearby, his blue skin pale with shock. "The Void Harbingers," he whispered when he noticed Reed. They were supposed to be a myth, a story to frighten children. On the display, a beautiful crystalline Astralis vessel approached one of the black ships. It fired a concentrated beam of energy that would have vaporized an asteroid. The black ship absorbed the blast without slowing, then fired back. The Astralis ship didn't explode. It simply came apart, as if the bonds holding its molecules together had been severed. "By the stars," Foster breathed. Reports flooded in from across the sector. 3 colonies under attack. 2 space stations destroyed. The Luminar flagship, the most advanced vessel in the galaxy, reduced to floating debris in seconds. Commander Thelos noticed Reed and Foster. "Humans, what are you doing here? This doesn't concern your backward world. Return to your quarters and—" "Commander," a communications officer interrupted. "We've lost contact with the Astralis colony on Helios II. Population 8 million. The Void Harbingers have already moved on to the next system." Thelos's 4 hands clenched into fists. The command center fell silent. Ambassador Wilson, Earth's diplomatic representative, stepped forward. "Commander Thelos, Earth stands ready to assist the Council in this crisis." Laughter, harsh and bitter, erupted from several aliens. "With what?" A Draxis official sneered. "Your primitive warships. Your outdated weapons. You've seen what these creatures do to our advanced vessels." Wilson remained calm. Sometimes, different approaches yield different results. Commander Thelos studied the humans for a long moment. "Your assistance is appreciated, Ambassador, but unnecessary. The combined fleets of the Council will handle this threat." 3 hours later, the combined fleets of the Council were in retreat. The black ships, now identified definitely as the Void Harbingers of ancient legend, had destroyed 30% of the Council's defensive capabilities. Sleek, beautiful vessels designed for perfect efficiency had proven perfectly vulnerable to the Harbinger's mysterious weapons. Captain Reed was recalled to the command center, this time with Ambassador Wilson. The mood had changed dramatically. "Captain," Commander Thelos said, his voice subdued, "the Astralis colony on Proxima IV is under attack. 8 million civilians require immediate evacuation. All available Council ships are engaged elsewhere. The ECS Tenacity stands ready to assist," Reed replied without hesitation. Ambassador Lur stepped forward. "Captain Reed, you should understand the situation. 3 Astralis cruisers attempted to evacuate Helios II. None survived. The Void Harbingers specifically target evacuation vessels. I understand the risks, Ambassador." "Do you?" Lur's voice cracked. "My family is on Proxima IV." The command center fell silent again. Reed nodded solemnly. "Then we have no time to waste." He activated his communicator. "Tenacity, prepare for immediate departure, full evacuation protocols, and contact Earth Command. Tell them to deploy the Phoenix Squadron." As Reed strode from the command center, he heard Ambassador Wilson behind him. "Commander Thelos, there's something you should know about Earth ships." The ECS Tenacity dropped out of hyperspace near Proxima IV, followed by 3 more Earth vessels: the Defiance, the Steadfast, and the Fortitude. Through the viewport, Captain Reed could see the devastation. The planet's orbital defense stations were shattered, their beautiful crystalline structures now drifting debris. 2 Void Harbinger ships circled the planet like hungry sharks. "Incoming transmission from Proxima surface," Lieutenant Parker announced. "It's the Colonial Governor." A hologram appeared. showing a female astroless with panic in her eyes. Earth vessels, thank the stars you've come. We have 7 million civilians in the southern continent bunkers. The Harbingers destroyed our evacuation ships within minutes of arrival. We're here to help, Governor, Reed replied. Prepare your people for immediate evacuation. We'll begin landing operations in. Captain, shouted the sensor officer. Harbinger ship approaching. Fast. On the main screen, one of the black, jagged vessels turned toward them, accelerating with impossible speed. All hands, battle stations, Reed ordered calmly. Deploy armor plates. Activate adaptive hull system. The crew worked with practiced efficiency as thick metal shields extended across the ship's hull. To the watching astroless on the planet below, it looked primitive, even laughable, like a turtle pulling into its shell. Ambassador Lur, who had insisted on coming despite Reed's objections, watched with obvious skepticism. Captain, I've seen what these weapons do. Your metal plates won't. The Void Harbinger fired. A beam of dark energy struck the Tenacity directly. The ship shuddered violently. But it didn't break apart. Damage report. Reed called out. Adaptive hull functioning at 87% capacity. Engineer Foster replied from his station. The outer layer absorbed most of the energy. Inner hull intact. All systems operational. Ambassador Lur stared in disbelief. Impossible. The Harbinger fired again. And again. Each time, the Tenacity shook but held together. The thick armor plating, enhanced with Maya Williams' revolutionary technology, wasn't just blocking the attacks, it was learning from them, adapting its molecular structure to resist the energy. Begin landing operations, Reed ordered. Defiance and Steadfast, provide cover. Fortitude, position for evacuation support. The 4 blocky Earth ships moved with surprising agility, their formations tight and coordinated. When a second Harbinger vessel joined the attack, the human ships adjusted their positions without missing a beat. In the ship's medical bay, Dr. Allen and his team prepared for casualties. The Tenacity rocked with another hit. How are we still in one piece? A nurse asked. Compartmentalization. Dr. Allen answered. This ship isn't one connected structure like the alien vessels. We're 20 separate watertight, or space-tight, compartments. Even if they breach one section, the rest stays functional. On the bridge, Ambassador Lur watched in amazement as the Tenacity took hit after hit while continuing its evacuation mission. These ships of yours, we thought they were primitive because they're bulky and inelegant. Form follows function, Ambassador, Reed replied, steady despite the shaking deck. We designed them to take a beating and keep going. Below on the planet's surface, the first Earth shuttles landed. Unlike the graceful Astralis evacuation craft, the human shuttles were sturdy and utilitarian, with reinforced hulls and redundant engines. They began loading frightened civilians by the hundreds. A massive blast rocked the Tenacity. Direct hit to Sector 7, Foster reported. Hull breach. Emergency bulkheads engaged. In any Council ship, such a breach would mean catastrophic failure. But the Tenacity merely sealed off the damaged section and continued fighting. How is this possible? Lur whispered, gripping a railing as the ship shuddered again. Reed glanced at him. On Earth, we have a saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Our adaptive hull literally gets stronger with every hit it takes, and right now it's learning exactly how to resist Harbinger weapons. As a third Harbinger ship appeared on sensors, Reed allowed himself a small smile. They're noticing that we're not easy prey. Now let's show them what Earth ships can really do. Evacuation is 60% complete, Lieutenant Parker reported as the Tenacity shuddered from another hit. Fortitude reports they've loaded 2,000 civilians and are preparing for atmospheric exit. Captain Reed nodded, studying the tactical display. 3 Void Harbinger ships now circled Proxima IV, their black forms like knives against the stars. They had clearly expected the Earth vessels to break apart like the alien ships before them. Now the Harbingers seemed uncertain, their attack patterns becoming more aggressive out of frustration. "It's time," Reed said. He turned to communications. "Send the signal to Earth Command." Authorization read Phoenix 7. Ambassador Lur looked up from where he was helping coordinate his people's evacuation. "What signal? What are you planning?" Before Reed could answer, a flash of light erupted at the edge of the system. 5 more Earth ships appeared. But these looked different from the Tenacity. They were still blocky and utilitarian, but sleeker, with glowing blue lines running along their hulls. "Captain," Foster said with a grin, "Phoenix Squadron has arrived." The lead ship, ECS Thunderbolt, opened a channel. "Captain Reed, this is Captain Martinez. The cavalry has arrived. And we've brought some new toys." The Phoenix Squadron ships accelerated toward the planet at speeds that should have been impossible for vessels their size. The Harbinger ships immediately moved to intercept, firing their deadly energy weapons. "What are those?" Lur asked, pointing at the blue lines on the new ships. "Gravity fold drive manifolds," Foster explained. "Technology your scientists said was theoretically impossible." On screen, the Phoenix Squadron ships did something no Council vessel had ever accomplished. They jumped, not through hyperspace, but through localized folds in gravity itself. One moment they were in the path of Harbinger fire. The next, they were behind their attackers. "Begin Phase 2, Reed ordered. The Tenacity suddenly released its outer armor plates. They didn't drift away, however. They moved with purpose, forming a rotating shield around the evacuation vessels, while revealing a second, sleeker hull beneath. "You had a ship inside your ship," Lur whispered in shock. "Not exactly," Foster said. "More like a butterfly emerging from a cocoon." The outer hull served its purpose. It learned everything about Harbinger weapons. Now watch what we do with that knowledge. The Tenacity's newly revealed weapon systems came online. They didn't fire beams or projectiles. Instead, they emitted pulses that matched the exact frequency of the Harbinger weapons, but in reverse phase. When the nearest Harbinger fired again, its beam met the pulse and dissipated harmlessly. "Perfect counter-frequency," Foster said with satisfaction, just as the adaptive hull data predicted. Captain Martinez's voice came over the comm again. "Tenacity, continue evacuation operations. Phoenix Squadron will handle the offensive." What followed was unlike any space battle the galaxy had ever witnessed. The Phoenix Squadron ships moved with impossible agility, jumping through gravity folds to strike from unexpected angles. Their weapons, calibrated from the Tenacity's adaptive hull data, bypassed the Harbinger's defenses. Reed watched as Captain Martinez executed a tactic known as the Hammer and Anvil, an ancient Earth military maneuver adapted for 3-dimensional space. 3 Phoenix ships drove a Harbinger vessel toward the waiting guns of the other 2. Caught in the crossfire, the Harbinger's hull began to crack. "We've never been able to damage them before," Lur said in awe. "You tried to beat them at their own game," Reed replied. "We changed the rules." The battle continued as evacuation ships streamed upward from the planet's surface. The Harbingers, facing effective resistance for the first time, began to retreat. "Captain," Foster called out, "the lead Harbinger ship is attempting to call for reinforcements." Reed's expression hardened. "Not today." He opened a channel to all Earth ships. "Execute Operation Spearhead. Target the lead vessel. Let's show these Harbingers exactly what Earth's primitive engineering can do." "Operation Spearhead commencing," Captain Martinez confirmed over the comms. The Phoenix Squadron moved into a perfect pentagon formation, the blue lines of their gravity fold drives pulsing with increasing intensity. On the Tenacity's bridge, Engineer Foster activated a secure terminal, transmitting targeting data to the squadron. Adaptive hull analysis complete. Enemy weakness identified at junction points in their forward sections. The 5 Phoenix ships suddenly accelerated, not toward the Harbinger vessels, but toward each other. Ambassador Lur gasped, expecting a collision. Instead, an extraordinary thing happened. The 5 ships' gravity fold fields merge, creating a single, massive distortion in space. "What are they doing?" Lur asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Something your scientists claimed was impossible," Reed replied. "Synchronized gravity folding." The distortion collapsed inward, then exploded outward as a directed wave. It struck the lead Harbinger ship like a hammer, warping space around it. The black vessel twisted unnaturally, its structure failing as gravity itself tore it apart. "Direct hit," Foster announced. "Target neutralized." The remaining Harbinger ships immediately broke off their attack and fled, jumping to faster-than-light speed. As the evacuation continued, the Council finally responded to the crisis. 3 sleek Meridian vessels arrived, followed by a Draxus flagship. Their commanders stared in disbelief at the destroyed Harbinger ship and the damaged but functional Earth vessels. "How?" demanded the Draxus commander. "How did your primitive ships survive what our advanced vessels could not?" "Perhaps," Reed suggested, "it's time to reconsider what advanced really means." 3 days later, in a hastily organized technical conference aboard the Galactic Council station, engineer Maya Williams stood before a group of the galaxy's most prestigious shipwrights and scientists. Behind her, holographic displays showed detailed scans of the Tenacity systems. "The fundamental difference in our approach," Maya explained, "is that we designed our ships based on Earth's history of conflict and survival. When you've spent centuries trying not to die, you learn to build differently." She highlighted the adaptive hull system. "This technology doesn't just resist attacks, it learns from them. Every hit makes it stronger, adjusting its molecular structure to counter whatever damaged it." A Luminar scientist shook his glowing head. "But the energy requirements alone would be substantial," Maya finished for him. "Which is why we built our power systems with 300% redundancy and distributed them throughout the hull." The alien engineers murmured among themselves. What they had seen as wasteful over-engineering was in fact a sophisticated survival strategy. "And the compartmentalization?" asked an Astralis designer. "Your internal spaces are so inefficient." Foster, standing beside Maya, stepped forward. "Each section of our ships can function independently if needed. If one part is damaged, the others compensate. We sacrifice some space, yes, but gain tremendous survivability. It's a fundamentally different philosophy," Maya continued. "Your ships are like perfect, beautiful organisms, optimized but vulnerable to critical failure. Ours are more like coral reefs, collections of systems that work together but can survive if parts are damaged." In the back of the room, Ambassador Lur approached Captain Reed. The Astralis no longer looked condescending, just thoughtful. "Your people built ships to survive," Lur said quietly. "We built ours to impress." Reed nodded. "Different evolutionary pressures lead to different adaptations. Earth's history is filled with disasters and conflicts. We learn to build things that last through hell." "My people owe you a debt we can never repay," Lur continued. "Those 8 million colonists would have died without your primitive ships." At the front of the room, Maya was explaining the gravity fold drive to the stunned audience. "You said it violated 3 laws of physics," she noted with a small smile. "We simply found a way around those laws instead of through them." A Draxus engineer rose to his feet. "I propose an immediate joint engineering initiative. It's clear we have much to learn from Earth's approach." For the first time since humanity joined the galactic community, not a single alien voice objected. 6 months after the Void Harbinger attack, the Galactic Council station hummed with activity. In the central docking bay, Earth vessels now occupied prime positions, no longer relegated to the outer rings. Engineers and officers from dozens of species moved among them, studying their designs with newfound respect. Captain Reed walked through the station's main promenade, noticing how differently he was treated. Aliens who once avoided eye contact now nodded respectfully. Some even saluted, a human gesture they had adopted. "Captain Reed," called a familiar voice. Ambassador Lur approached, accompanied by several Astralis engineers. Perfect timing. We were just discussing the integration of adaptive hull technology with our crystal matrix systems. Any progress? Reed asked. Remarkable progress, Lur replied with genuine enthusiasm. By combining our energy manipulation capabilities with your adaptive materials, we've created defensive systems 10 times more effective than either approach alone. Reed smiled. That's good to hear, especially with Harbinger activity increasing in the outer systems. They turned at the sound of clapping. A group of cadets, a mix of humans and aliens, was watching a historical recording of the Battle of Proxima IV. The moment when the Phoenix Squadron executed Operation Spearhead played on a large screen. The young officers cheered as the Harbinger ship twisted and broke apart. They study your tactics now, Lur observed, in every academy across Council space. Reed nodded. And we study yours. There's value in both approaches. They continued walking toward the newly established Joint Engineering Command Center. Inside, Maya Williams was leading a diverse team of scientists, her hands moving through a complex holographic display. The new hybrid vessels will combine the best of all our technologies, she was explaining. Earth's redundancy and adaptive systems, Astralis crystal energy manipulation, Meridian sensor arrays, and Draxis propulsion. Will they be beautiful ships? Asked a young Luminar engineer. Maya smiled. They'll be functional ships. Beauty will follow naturally from that function. Reed noticed Admiral Jackson speaking with the Council's Supreme Commander Thelos in a corner of the room. The Admiral waved him over. Captain Reed. Thelos greeted him, extending all 4 hands in the new Council salute. I was just telling Admiral Jackson that the Joint Fleet exercises exceeded all expectations. The combined Earth Council forces repelled the simulated Harbinger attack with minimal casualties. Good to hear, Commander, Reed replied. I admit, Thelos continued, his voice lower, I was among those who dismissed Earth's contributions when you first joined the Council. I believed advanced civilizations must follow a single technological path, our path. I was wrong. Later that evening, a formal ceremony was held in the Council's Grand Hall. Representatives from every member species gathered as Admiral Jackson and Engineer Williams accepted the Council's highest honor, the Star of Innovation, on behalf of Earth. Today marks not just recognition of Earth's technological contributions, Supreme Commander Thelos announced, but a new understanding of what advancement truly means. We had forgotten something vital, that evolution takes many paths, and diversity of approach is strength, not weakness. As applause filled the hall, Reed found himself standing next to Ambassador Lur once more. You know, Lur said thoughtfully, the greatest lesson wasn't about ships at all. It was about perspective. We thought we were teaching you, when in fact, we needed to learn from you. Reed nodded. There's an old Earth saying, necessity is the mother of invention. Our designs grew from our challenges. Your elegant ships reflected your peaceful rise to the stars. And now, Lur asked, now we face the Harbingers together, stronger for our differences. Outside the station viewport, a new class of vessel moved into position, the first of the hybrid warships. It combined the sleek beauty of Astralis design with the practical resilience of Earth engineering. Neither fully alien nor fully human, it represented something greater than either alone. As night fell across the station, officers and engineers from all species continued their work, no longer divided by mockery or pride. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Different didn't mean inferior, and sometimes the most powerful solutions came from the most unexpected places. The blocky ships of Earth, once a cosmic joke, had become the foundation of a stronger, more resilient galactic community.